I don't think that is really the reason behind this. In fact, if Turkey took a decent position and ended this dirty war and withdrew from northern Syria and withdrew its terrorists, because these terrorists come from across Asia and across the world, and especially a large number of them come from Central Asia and China. And these are people are now trained and now they're drunk in victory. If they go to India, if they go to Central Asia, if they go to Afghanistan, if they go to China, if they go to they could cause a lot of trouble. They're now well trained there. So Erdogan has created a multinational terrorist organization or terrorist organizations because they're multiple groups and they're constantly infighting. And if they do take Syria, they'll start killing each other because when they were in Idlib, they were killing each other. But Erdogan, for this assault, was able to organize them under one command. But it's not going to stay that way. But in any case, if he wanted refugees to go back, what he would have had to do was to normalize with Syria. But when there's constant war going on, when they're terrorists there, how can people go back? What Erdogan really wants is influence in Syria. He considers it to be uh, a part of Turkish culture and Turkish civilization, and that it was a part of the Ottoman Empire. So it is their legitimate realm of influence. And since he is from the Muslim Brotherhood himself, although the Muslim Brotherhood is a very divided organization, it's not a single organization, but in any case, he has a special relationship with those people affiliated to the Muslim Brotherhood in Syria. It's interesting, though, that Erdogan had very good relations before with the Syrian president. In fact, he and his wife would go on vacation with the president of Syria and his wife. Their relations were closer than Iranian-Syrian relations, for example. They were neighbors, they were doing business, but then he turned against them. But I think that the issue really is enhancing his influence, but also at the price of the Palestinians and the resistance. He did it in coordination with the Israelis and the Americans so that they would support him in gaining that influence in Syria. So it's a win-win situation for Erdogan and Netanyahu. They both win. By weakening Syria, both win, and that's what both of them support. And the Americans, they continue to bomb Syria. The Israelis have bombed Syria. And the Israelis don't bomb the opposition. But they bombed the Syrian government hundreds of times over the years. So it's clear who is siding with whom. But we have to see what happens. Right now, it's a very critical moment. The coming days will be very critical. We saw uh, the Iran Ayatollah Khamenei. He sent his a representative to meet President Assad today. We saw the statements today made by the Iranian foreign minister, who said that we support a Syrian opposition, but a legitimate one, nonviolent one, not a terrorist organization. And the foreign minister of Russia also said that HTS is a terrorist organization. What Turkey is trying to do is have Al-Qaeda rule over Syria. And the West is trying to legitimize this. They're trying to present them as moderate. The same people who carried out 9/11, the same organization. This is, or at least what the West says. The West is so hypocritical that I think this raises questions about 9/11. Something that I never questioned, actually. I was one of those who believed that 9/11 was probably carried out by Al-Qaeda. Maybe some elements within the US intelligence allowed it to happen for their own, but I don't know. Who knows? When the United States is so sinister that it creates ISIS and Al-Qaeda and it destroys, and when it allows the Israelis to carry out Holocaust in Gaza, then anything is believable with the United States after what we've seen over the past decade and a half. But the issue, I don't think, has much to do um, with the refugees. The issue has to do with Erdogan's wish to have greater influence. It is his ego to a large degree, and it's not in the interest of Turkey, by the way. Turkey will have a very difficult time with Syria, with Al-Qaeda at the realm. It will create great difficulty, and not just in Syria, but across the region. It will have implications that I think will be very difficult for countries across the region, but Turkey first and foremost. First of all, Al-Qaeda is not going to improve the lives of the Syrians. Maybe Qatar will give them some money to do some things because they are also supporting them, but Qatar is the banker, but paying for a few thousand or a couple of, let's say 20,000, 30,000, whatever, terrorists is one thing, but running a state is another, especially when it's under such severe sanctions by the United States. And the United States is not going to remove sanctions, even for Al-Qaeda. Why? Because the United States doesn't want a strong Syria. Because Israel doesn't want a strong Syria. It doesn't matter who's in charge. They want a broken and fragmented Syria. They want a broken Lebanon. They want a weak and broken Jordan. That's why Jordan is so weak. That is why Egypt is so weak. That is intentional. So Syria, which was the only country that was resisting Israel, it has to be broken. And of course, if Syria is broken, then Lebanon is surrounded. And therefore, it makes things a lot more easy for the Israeli regime to end the resistance. So in a sense, the fall of the Syrian government would be great news for both Israel and for Erdogan, but it would be terrible news for the region. Even though there are quite a few people who are now supporting these terrorists because they're influenced by Arabic media in the region, which is trying to give them a positive image, or give a positive image to the public about present the public with a positive image of these terrorists.
How do you see the U.S.-Turkey relationship as far as this dirty war is concerned? Because there are, at some levels, there are convergences in terms of CIA operatives supporting radical fundamentalist groups to weaken Assad government, because both Turkey and the US backed by Israel, obviously want Assad to go. It was part of the original Netanyahu plan, who laid out 7 countries in the Middle East and across Africa, which should be toppled. And later General Wesley Clark, I think, he confirmed that it was Syria, Lebanon, Iran, Iraq, Sudan, Yemen, that these were the countries that should go. But there are also Libya, yeah. But there are also differences, particularly thinking in the context of Turkey, is the Kurdish separatist forces. The northeastern part that is held by many of these Kurdish nationalist forces are backed by the US, are opposed by Turkey. So there is a serious difference there. Of course, Turkey wants to use Al-Qaeda to balance them, some kind of balance of forces game there. How do you see Turkey-US relationship or equation there?
It's complicated, but the real issue is that Erdogan is unable to make the right decision, which would solve the problem in those areas controlled by the Americans illegally. An illegal American presence. They illegally occupy 1/3 of Syria, and they're stealing the oil and the grain for years. They're starving the Syrian people, and they're stealing their oil and grain. It is extraordinary what's happening in northeastern Syria. It's extraordinary. The Americans are like, they are petty thieves. Their soldiers are thieves. They protect oil wells so that the oil can be taken out of Syria and sold. And the Syrian people are under extreme sanctions, the Caesar sanctions, starvation sanctions, and their oil is being openly stolen by an illegal US presence. But in any case, if Erdogan wanted to deal with this issue, just like the issue of refugees, the solution was normalization with Syria. If the Syrian government was allowed to strengthen, to take its territory, to not constantly fight his Al-Qaeda and terrorists and the ISIS terrorists and others, their affiliates, then they would be able to spend more time in asserting their control over the country. There would be more trade, thus more people would return to Syria. There would be more security, thus the US-backed terrorists or Kurdish groups in northeastern Syria, they would be forced to disarm. It's very clear what the solution is. But Erdogan wants the Erdogan solution, not the just solution, not the more. Erdogan is the person who's murdered hundreds of thousands of Syrians. He is responsible. The West likes to say that Assad killed hundreds of thousands of his own people. No. It was Erdogan who's more responsible for the deaths in Syria than any individual, even the Americans and the Israelis, because it was done through his territory. It was done through his border. He cooperated. There was a Lebanese journalist, Serena Sheem, who was investigating how near Ain al-Arab or Kobani, the Turkish government was sending ISIS troops and ISIS troops and ISIS weapons through World Food Organization trucks into Syria. She reported on that. Then Turkish intelligence said that she's a terrorist or she's a spy. I don't remember right now. People can look it up. Her story is out there. She then went on air, live on television, and said, I'm worried about myself. I'm not a spy. I'm not, I'm just reporting. She was telling the truth about what the sinister role that Turkish intelligence was playing in Syria. She died that day in a car accident. They tried to cover it up. They never carried out an investigation. They murdered her. They said that it was a truck driver, and no one believes it. She was an American, by the way, an American Lebanese with 2 kids. The American embassy did nothing. No investigation, no call for investigation. Why? Because she was reporting what was back then being hidden from the world. That Turkey was supporting ISIS and Al-Qaeda. So if Syria was able, so he's responsible for these deaths more than anyone else. But if if he made the right decision and withdrew, then the Kurdish issue would be solved, at least relatively speaking. The issue of refugees would be improved, but he didn't choose that. He decided to go ahead with invading Syria once again, repeating what he did in 2011, 12, and 13.
I wanted to ask you, Professor Marandi, very briefly, if the Shia-Sunni framework is even applicable in this dirty war. We discussed earlier how in Palestine that's absolutely inapplicable because Hezbollah was one of the greatest defenders of the Palestinian people and Hamas. But in Syria, it is said there's a lot talked about the Alawite community, the constituency from which President Assad draws his support. And there is a long history that is told. I don't want to repeat. But Iran, the Iran-backed militia forces in Iraq, Hezbollah, and Assad's constituency are all Shias. And some people report that Turkey sees the radical Sunni fundamentalists as also a factor of balancing the Shia resistance force. Do you think there is any merit in this line of analysis?
No. First of all, Assad is not Shia. He's Alawi, and they're different from Shia. Second of all, his own wife is Sunni. Third of all, in Syria, Sunni people are influential in government, in the private sector. Aleppo is a Sunni city. Assad has support from different communities. I've been to Syria throughout the Dirty War. I was there multiple times in 2013, 14, 15, 16. I lectured at the University of Damascus many times. I've met many students. At least half of the students are Sunni Arab. Some of them liked Assad, some of them didn't like him, some of them hated him, some of them loved him. But none of the people I spoke to wanted the terrorists. That's a different thing altogether. So even his opponents said, we're scared of these people. And it's not just Alawites, by the way. There are Christians, there are Druze. The Shia is actually the smallest group. They're like 1 or 2%. They're in not a significant number. And then there are the Kurds, who are Sunni predominantly. It's a mixed country with a diverse, with a great deal of diversity. But these terrorists don't accept diversity. They're ISIS. You believe that they killed more Sunnis in Iraq and Syria than any other community. They've slaughtered Sunnis. The reason why Hezbollah came in, the reason why the Iraqi Popular Mobilization Forces came in to support the Syrian government was because Turkey and Jordan, with the help of all the NATO and others, brought in tens of thousands of foreign fighters. Hezbollah entered the battle in Syria in mid-2013. By that time, there were already tens of thousands of foreign fighters brought into Syria. And then Iran began to get involved, and then in 2015, the Russians began to get involved. So this has nothing to do with Shia and Sunni. Otherwise, the key issue in the region is the Palestinian people who are Sunni. All the sacrifices that the resistance is making is for the sake of the Palestinian people. Otherwise, Hezbollah, they can just live their lives in Lebanon and ignore the Palestinians. Ansarullah could have cut a deal with the Americans in Yemen. Hezbollah could have cut even a better deal with the Americans. So, no, it doesn't make any sense. The bulk of the martyrs of Syria who fought against these extremist groups were Sunni. These groups are NATO-backed. They are the people that NATO created. And Wahhabism is not traditionally central to Sunni Islam. It was an ideology that was predominant in an area in the Arabian Peninsula called Najd. But because of oil wealth and because of the Saudi-US alliance, it was promoted by the Saudis. And that's what they were promoting in Afghanistan. In fact, you may know this, but the University of Nebraska Omaha, they were the first ones to publish takfiri literature for school children in Afghanistan. First of all, the Americans supported extremist groups in Afghanistan to induce a Soviet invasion. Many people don't know that. Carter, the human rights president, Carter and Brzezinski but it was Brzezinski's idea, but he put it to Carter and he approved it. They gave funding to these extremists in Afghanistan in order to encourage the Soviet Union to invade the country. So they sacrificed Afghanistan in order to create a Vietnam for the Soviet Union. How sinister can that be? And then what did they do? The first books that were published, school books for children, takfiri books, were published in the United States by an American university. And then, of course, the Saudis came in and began to spend more money, and the madrasas became, and then, and this extremism became a problem not just in Afghanistan, but in Pakistan, a very moderate Sunni country, conservative, moderate Sunni. But, when you have all this oil wealth coming in, when you have these mosques, brand new mosque with all this oil money, whether in Pakistan or anywhere else in the world, how can other Muslim organizations compete with the oil money coming from the Persian Gulf? So in any case, the point is that this is not Sunni Islam. These groups, ISIS, do not represent Sunni Islam. Al-Qaeda do not represent Sunni Islam. And that is why they're sponsored by the West.
I remember this famous photograph of Mujahideen leaders from Afghanistan going to the White House. I'm not sure if it was during the Carter or the Reagan administration, but there was this famous
It was
photograph.
Reagan.
Yeah, Reagan administration, yes. This was back in the days where communism had to be toppled, and so the Mujahideens were trained. They never knew they were to later turn against the Americans. I think
But I
this.
should point out that I'm not saying that all the people who resisted in Afghanistan were extremists.
Mhm.
When the Soviet Union invaded, they were people legitimately defending their country. But there are those who are getting money from the CIA. There are those who are getting money from the Western intelligence agencies. That's a different thing. Opposing an invasion of one's country is one thing. Being a tool, especially before the invasion of a Western power, is a different thing. What happened in Syria, the issue for Iran is not about, as the foreign minister said, is not about opposition to the Syrian government. It is an illegitimate organization, terror organization, that is being promoted by Erdogan and his allies. And the West will not do anything in Syria or in our region that goes against Israeli regime interests. I have no doubt about that. Never. If it's India and Israel, it's Israel. If it's the UK and Israel, it's Israel. If it's Saudi Arabia and Israel, it's Israel. Israel is what's important to them.
Hi, my name is Ayushman. I, along with Jyotisman, have started this platform. In the last 2 years, we have tried to build content for the left and progressive forces. We have interviewed economists, historians, political commentators, and activists so far. If you have liked our content so far and want us to build an archive for the left, I have two requests for you. Please do consider donating for the cause. Link is in the description below. Also, if you are not able to do so, don't feel sad. You can always like our videos and share our videos to your comrades. Finally, don't forget to hit the subscribe button.